My name is Thomas Anderson. I have Andy Jones with me. I also have Bart DeVos with me. I'll do the presentation here today. We will talk about architectural integration. We will focus on that topic for the entire presentation. With that said, I'll just move on. So first of all, what is architectural integration? For some reason. Okay, here we go. Just some glitches in the software here. So what is architectural integration? So architectural integration is not the typical theater in a box, meaning that it's not the typical installation where you just have an off-the-shelf package that you sell to a client to take the same solution and sell to the next because you have a set width, set height, set length, and you just put in all the equipment and that's done. Architectural integration is looking into what do the client want? How can you customize the equipment into that to that room or to that outdoor space or to that yacht or any place that he's wants technology. And of course, the biggest challenge that we see today is that we are coming in too late into the projects. Most of the house is already finished or is already starting to be built when we are invited into the discussions with the end client. So that is a challenge. So the building process, when you build a house or any room, I guess, the building process is divided into 4 different steps. You have the schematic design step. This is where you sit down with, or the architect designer is sitting down with the end client and ask the end client, okay, what are you looking for? What type of house do you want? What type of styles? What is your preferred kind of like interior design? And then, of course, based on that, the designer and the architect tell the end client, okay, this is the things we have, this is the options we have, this is what we can do for you. And then in the next phase, design development, is that when the architect and designer is coming back to their office, they sit down and they do the drawings where they kind of like put together a suggestion for the end client, comes back to the end client and present that. And at the end, they agree, they say, okay, this is great, let's do that. And then they send the drawings to get them approved. So the permits and the construction documents are getting approved. And then when that is done, the final step is the actual construction. So where do integrators fit into that? So before we cover that, I'll also then just discuss the next phase that typically comes into the end customer's mind is then, okay, we've this kind of like looked at all the house, discussed different things, and now of course we also need to look at type of furnitures, the rooms size and like the form, the colors, the texture. And some people include the space. All discussions that you have with the designer. And again, the common thing with the architects and the designers is that they never talk about technology. And if you read any design book or you talk or look up any web page, you will not find like a lot of information about technology when they talk about interior design or architectural integration. It's never mentioned. So if you start looking at technology, like as part of the 4 elements, like that we talked about, design, like when it comes to line and color and fabric and so on, then you can actually look at technology as an add-on that can help to make kind of like the design phase to take it to the next level, because you can do a big screen that is actually artwork and present like art on a screen. You can have sound in the room that create a special feeling. There are a lot of things you can do, and these are the things that we'll talk about during the next slides. So that's the question coming back. So where do the integrators fit in? So normally they are not included until the construction phase. That is way too late. That is our biggest challenge, and that is what we need to work on. So ideally, we should be part of the schematic design process or the design development phase, meaning that we should actually figure out when we talk to the homeowner and ask them, okay, who is the architect you used? Who is the designer? So that for the next project, we actually go and visit these designers and architects and show them what we can do, so that next time they are doing something, they involve us in these first phases. So if we are, I'll say, part of the first phases, then of course you start asking questions like, does the client love movies? Does the client like sports? Is the client interested in new media art? Is the client an avid gamer? What type of digital canvases can we actually put in here to make all these things that the client love come into play? And of course, outdoor solutions and special cinema and all that, of course, is part of it. Of course, when we look into then the different type of rooms, cinema design. So if you ask anyone, like an end customer, ask them, okay, can you describe a home cinema? I'm pretty sure that the description would say something about a projector mounted onto a pole, mounted in the ceiling somewhere in the room, like most likely in the back of the room. Do we think that is okay? Me personally, absolutely not. And I think that most clients actually don't think that as aesthetically pleasing either. So with Barco Residential, you can actually get rid of the projector. Not saying that you kick it out of the system, but you actually hide it. You can hide it inside the wall, inside the ceiling, inside furnitures. And that's all things that we're going to talk about in a few examples that we show later on here. So of course, same thing with outdoor design. That's slightly more, I would say, demanding or harder to work with, because on outdoor design, you also have weather condition, you have wind, you have rain, you have sun, all of these things that makes it harder. But you can actually make sealed boxes for the projector screen. You can have sealed boxes for the projector. You can have outdoor speakers, amplifiers in a tech room, so that it's definitely not impossible. It's just harder. So what do we need to think about, and why do we need to talk to architects and designers? Because let's say that you place the pool, of course, a place where the sun is, and you want a big screen close to the pool. And of course, it's important to make sure that the screen is placed not where the sun is setting, meaning that if the sun shines directly onto the screen, you probably have to wait 2 to 3 more hours before you can use the projector system in the afternoon. Of course, you can also go with a crazy projector that has like 50-60,000 lumens, but even that will probably not be enough to overcome the sun directly shining on the screen. So placing the projector screen a place where it's not affected directly by the sun, that's an absolute number one. And of course, look at different options of where you place the projector. Can it be in like a small cabinet somewhere around the pool area? Can it be inside the floor so it comes up with a lift? Is all things that you can look into, especially if you are involved early, because then you can make the space to install these things. It's much harder to do this, I'll say, custom things if the construction is already started. So again, talking to the designers and architects, that's extremely important. And then living room design, or actually any room that is not a dedicated theater or not outdoor. So it can be a bedroom, it can be a bathroom, kitchen, living room. But we will just cover a living room in the project, or in an example on the next slides. But again, this is the space I see as the biggest potential, because right now most customers, like I said, integrators are involved way too late. so that the only option is to put a TV on the wall. And if you talk to a designer or an architect, they hate TVs because a TV is just a big black box that is just black when it's not on. And they hate a big black box. Of course, some TV manufacturers has looked into ways to maybe have it on all the time to show artwork, which is good, but it's still a TV on the wall. So how can you actually make sure that when the technology is not used, you don't see it? So that's what we're going to talk about over the next slides here. So we are solving these challenges with the technology we have. We can actually hide all the equipment. We can hide it inside walls, inside ceilings, and like pretty much get rid of all the technology so that it's not visible. One of the most important parts to do that is to see the drawings. The moment we see drawings, you as an integrator, or if you share the drawings with us, we can very quickly recommend you to say, okay, what about placing the projector inside this furniture piece? What about placing it inside a wall here? If you actually increase the depth of the wall by 10 centimeters, you can put it in here. Or if you increase the ceiling depth by 5 centimeters, you can put it into the ceiling. Or you can add an extra box here or there. So drawings are extremely important. So here is an example that we looked at. So this was a small media room in a house where they use this room as a kind of like a library. That's the reason why they have the bookshelf in the back. So they wanted to turn this into more of a, not just library, but more of a media room, so where they could, yes, still read a book and listen to good music, but they also wanted to watch TV and use it as a room where they could play some games, and they had a good collections of older movies that they wanted to watch. So the architect designer said, yeah, we can do that. It messes up the room, but you can probably put a TV over the fireplace and keep the speakers on the side. The designer was not happy because, like I said, he's not a big fan of TVs. So when we saw this room, we said, okay, can we have a shot? Can you let us try to do something with this room? So we looked at the drawings. We saw, okay, the room design. We saw the length. We saw the width. We saw the height. We looked at potentials. We looked at, okay, what about the drop-down screen? What if we close the curtains? Okay, here's the throw distance. Okay, so we had a lot of limitations here. The end customer didn't want to have closed curtains. He didn't want to remove the light fixtures in the ceiling. He loved the fireplace, and he wanted to keep the bookshelf. So how do we overcome these challenges? So the ceiling wasn't deep enough to put in a large projector, but we thought, okay, maybe we can put in a smaller projector. But again, then you had to close the curtains, which the client didn't want to do. So what would be the best options? So we looked at, okay, what if you actually take part of the bookshelf in the corner back there in the left corner, and you put the projector inside the cabinet and you shoot angled. That way you can keep the light fixture. You don't have to close the drapes completely because you have enough space to put in a large projector in there. So we looked at these options, looked at the screen size, and then based on the screen size and the position of the projector, we could then figure out which lens we wanted to use. So we have nice tools to do that. Of course, you can calculate manually, but you can also go into the barcoresidential.com page. Up in the right corner, you will find a link to the calculator that will quickly tell you which lens you want to use. We're also about to launch kind of like an Excel calculator that can do a lot more than just finding the lens. I'll come back to that on the next slide here. So one of the most important things when you do a living room is that you need to check for ambient light. So what you do is that you put in certain specification, what's the preferred content, how much light is actually hitting the space where you're planning to place the screen, at the time of the day where you want to watch movies. So kind of like you look for the worst case scenario when you want to watch movies. So in this case, we put in the numbers, and the result was that you need at least 3,914 lumens to overcome the ambient light in the room. That means that we can actually use a Balder CinemaScope. And that would be a good fit for this installation. Because it has enough light and has enough power to overcome the light in the room without completely closing the curtains. Still, if they want to watch during the day, you had to do something with the window. We're coming back to that. The next thing we looked at with a tool that we have that we still, I mean, we can't share it right now, but we will share it in the future. But right now you can use those. You can send, I'll say, your drawings or your specifications to Andy or myself or Bart, and we can help you to calculate these things. So with this tool, we can actually simulate the setup, shooting from an angle. And based on this, we can create a small report that tells you exactly how much you need to tilt the projector, how much you need to pivot the projector, what the uniformity will be, if you need Scheimpflug adjustment, and it will tell you if the image is going to be good or bad, and the resolution you have after you use the warp engine. So all of these things is what comes out, and based on this, we can tell you very quickly this image is going to look awesome, as good as shooting straight from the middle of the room in the back. So in this case, it was all good. So that was a good solution. So as we mentioned, how do we integrate the screen? We thought that, okay, let's put it into the ceiling. The beams were going the right way, so that we can actually put it in between the beams, so that you have a drop-down screen in front of the fireplace. Of course, you couldn't use the fireplace exactly when you were watching the screen, just in case for any accidents, but it was a good solution. The projector integration, that was placed in the back of the room, so back in the corner. So how did we place the projector? So in this case, we used a mount from DT, so Display Technologies. It's a mirror mount that you can use together with a Balder. So Balder is shooting straight up onto the mirror and then back onto the screen. Of course, you didn't want to see this rig all the time, even if I love the products we sell, and I think the mirror mounts are super cool. I mean, they're not aesthetically beautiful to put into the room. So we wanted to look into ways to hide it completely. So that's where the port window comes in. So by having doors in the cabinet and putting a port window, first of all, you don't see it, but it's also completely silent, because you can put in silencer into the door so that the whole thing becomes like pretty much completely silent. But of course, that gives us another challenge, which is temperature. If you close down the cabinet completely, you don't have any place to get rid of the air. So that's where this comes in. We took another shelf of the bookshelf and put in a fan where you pull the cold air in, coming in onto the side, cools down the projector, and the hot air that goes out in the bottom is then sucked through the fans in the bottom. And if you live in a place like I do here in Norway, in the winter time, it's quite cold, especially around on the floor. So this is actually a nice heating system for your floor as well. So that's a bonus. And of course, we don't have the fans. So we used, again, Display Technologies, because they have all these nice tools that we can play with. So we can actually use then fans from them. You can put it into our system, and we can regulate air coming in, air coming out, so that this is completely silent. The projector is having a good life. It's not being it's not overheating, and it's, like I said, it's silent. So of course, when you shoot from an angle from the side, we see that the light beams are not hitting the lamp in the ceiling, so we're all good. and we have the correct lens to cover the entire screen. But of course, when we put on content, we see that the screen is overshooting. So you see that on the right side of the screen, you see that we cover the height quite nicely, slightly overshooting. But on the left side, you see that we are overshooting by a lot. So we're a keystoned image because we're shooting from an angle. So how can we overcome that? We've already simulated the setup and we know that it will be fine, but we also need to enable the tools. So inside the projector, you find a 4-corner warp engine. It can do, I'll say, other types of warp, but in this case, we use the 4-corner warp. So what is that? The 4-corner warp is technology that we have taking from the simulation market, because all of the products that we sell in the residential space are based on platforms. So it's a platform thinking products, meaning that when we build the products, we think about different markets to make sure that we can do adjustments to the product itself to optimize it for the different markets. For example, CinemaScope for residential market, and a very high-end warp engine for the simulation market. But of course, the warp engine is a super cool tool for architectural integration as well. And since the projectors can be installed in any way possible, so you can shoot straight up, straight down from an angle, because it has a liquid cooling system built in, so that it doesn't really matter how you install the products. You have the full flexibility to do whatever you want. And the warp engine, that is very, very high quality because it's used in life and death simulation setups. So that pixel quality is extremely important. Not just the amount of pixels, but the quality of each pixel. So this is things we looked into when we built the warp engine. So this is actually not, I'll say, messing up the image in any way. The image will still look perfectly fine after we use the warp engine. So the result you see on screen is that you have an image that is perfectly aligned onto the screen on each side, and you don't have any artifacts. It's a good looking image from where you are sitting in the sofa here. So the end result, when technology was not used, was like this. So as you can see, the customer also wanted to get rid of the speakers because he saw, okay, if I don't have a TV, I don't want to see the speakers either. So you can then put in-wall speakers. And in this case, for example, you can use Meridian in-wall speakers that is built into the wall, so that you can also have customized grills in the front, so that it looks the same way as the wall, so that they are completely hidden. Instead of having a TV over the fireplace, we're putting up an art piece, so that the designer was super happy. Technology was gone, couldn't see anything. Screen is hidden inside the ceiling, projector is hidden inside the bookshelf. Fireplace is on, they can go into the room, read a book, and it just looks like a very pleasing room. And also, as you can see, in the back of the room, you have 2 sets of curtains. You have one set of curtains that will take down the sunlight maybe by 20%. That is enough to, in the afternoon, to still have a nice view out in the landscape you see in the background there, and you can still enjoy content on the projector screen. If you want to completely dark out the room, you had the second set of curtains that will completely close the room down so that it gets completely dark, so that you can actually turn the room into a cinema room. So by using the 2 set of motorized curtains, you can use the projector at all times. So when technology is in use, see the screen comes down, looks like you see here, it looks like the speakers are behind the screen. The speakers are actually placed just next to the scene, so that the sound is still as good with or without the screen down, which was an important point for the client as well. What about the installation? As you can see, the projector is installed inside the cabinet. has the two fans, one on the side, one in the bottom, nicely integrated into the bookshelf. You see that the front of the fans are made in the same type of wood as the doors of the bookshelf itself, so that everything is very, very nicely integrated. And if you don't know that there's a projector inside the bookshelf, you would not know. So this was ending up as a very, very good result, where you actually took a room that couldn't have a projector installed and install a very nice projector drop-down screen, and suddenly you turn the room into a very, very nice media room. Instead of having a 55-inch TV, you end up with a 3-meter wide image on the wall, which is slightly different watching movies on 3 meters versus 55-inch. And then here are some other projects that we have been working on. It's another client that showed us the drawings. As you can see, the projector is sitting on top of a shelf, shooting angled onto a screen. The height of the projector was above the top of the screen. So even by using all the shift we have, vertically and horizontally, we still had to use the warp engine to make sure the image was hitting the screen. But again, result was amazing. Projector is sitting inside the bookshelf here, or inside the cabinet, and it's working fine. Some other examples. Here is customized cabinet where you have a Balder projector shooting up onto a mirror. So when the projector is not used, you see it looks just like a nice piece of furniture. When the projector is used, the front top door on the right side of the cabinet is then opening up, and then the projector is shooting up on the mirror from a corner in the room, again onto the screen. And you can actually sit down. If you stand in the room, you will be in the way because this is kind of like a low installed projector. But if you're sitting in the sofa, the light beam will go over the head of the people sitting in the sofa and hit the screen without any issues. Next example is a projector sitting inside the ceiling. As you can see, they have enough space in the ceiling in front of the room. So we actually here in this case, we used a customized lens, a 90-degree lens with a throw of 0.47. And they wanted approximately 3-meter wide screen. In this case, you could place the projector then 120 meters away from the screen and get that screen size. And it's nicely integrated. When the projector is not used, that little box you see that's sticking down from the ceiling, that disappears up into the room and is completely covered. Again, this was a mount from Display Technologies that we asked, and they customized that for us for this lens. Another installation, again, projector sitting inside the ceiling. You have lower ceilings in the room, and you see that the projector is shooting onto a mirror and then onto a screen. Same installation, but then with a permanent screen on the wall. So not a drop-down screen. Same installation. And then here is a picture of how the projector is installed. Ceiling mounted, shooting the opposite direction, so shooting onto a mirror inside the ceiling, then shooting onto a second mirror that drops down, then back onto the screen. Again, in this case, we talked to designers and architects early, so we were able to make sure that hot air and I'll say cold air were coming into the projector where it needed, and we could get rid of the hot air inside the ceiling. So these are just examples of why it's so important to talk to architects and designers, because if you don't, it will be very hard to just put a projector inside the ceiling, because a projector inside the ceiling is not that hard, but you also need to make sure that the air is coming in and air is going out. That is why you need to talk to architects in an early phase, because you need to get rid of that air. Another example, this is outdoor furniture integration. So the projector itself, sitting in the left corner here, inside a little box that actually pops out from the floor itself. So when the projector is not used, there's just a sun deck, and you can see like almost like a small hatch in the floor. When I hit a button, the projector box comes up. It's completely sealed, so this is kind of like just carved out so you can see the actual installation. It's completely sealed. Air is going down into the ground, and then you're shooting over the pool on a screen that pops up from the ground on the other side. Again, a custom installed solution where we were involved early so that we can actually help and design the system so that they had the correct configuration for air coming in, air coming out. Another outdoor installation where you have screen coming down from the ceiling, projector was sitting inside the ceiling, and using that mirror that drops down to 45 degrees where you can shoot onto the screen. This installation was something we showed at ISC last year. So this projector here is actually sitting inside the side wall, shooting onto a mirror, and then the mirror is then opened more than 45 degrees. So you will again see a keystone image on the wall. Use the warp engine, and you fix the image perfectly onto the screen. That means that you can actually open up a lot of more possibilities when it comes to how to install the projector and how to hide it, because suddenly you also have the side walls to play with. And of course, the one limitation here is that for the mirror to not be extremely big, it needs to be all the way into the back of the room. You need a certain throw ratio to use this configuration. So you can't use like a short throw with a very big screen. It has to be a longer throw to use this setup. Just another example of projector installed in a ceiling. And then the next one here is a rear projection system, where we again show projectors built into a rig, specially configured rig where we use 4 projectors, all blended and work together, meaning that if you use this configuration here, there is no limitation in resolution and there is no limitation in size. By just adding more projectors, you can actually build whatever resolution you want and whatever size you want. And we have all the tools you need to make sure that all the content play as normal. You don't need to have like 15 different players to connect it to each projector. You have a box, a processor in the front that has multiple inputs, multiple outputs. And from an end user view, you see this as one screen. But from the integrator, you'd have to configure it as multiple projectors onto one screen. Again, something we can help you with. We can configure most of the system for you and help you with installation. Here's another easier example: one projector rear projection system. So it doesn't have to be multiple projector for rear projection. So as you can see, looks like a big TV, but it's actually a projection system in the back of the room. This slide here just shows us when we are configuring up an installation. They didn't want a screen because they didn't want to change the design itself of the house. But when people were home, they wanted to show art on the wall. So just kind of like subtle in the background behind where everyone is sitting and walking around. So I wanted an image that was from floor to ceiling. And just like nice pictures and art in the background. So that was what we wanted to show. So now